Today's presentation is on payroll schedules. Your payroll schedule is located in the Gemini employer portal under the reporting section or through the new school year setup dashboard that is located on the front of your employer reporting dashboard. Now, these payroll schedules, they are mandatory and they are required to be created prior to uploading any of the pay period reports for 25-26. The purpose of these is it's identifying that pay period begin, end, and pay date for each one of your pay period reports. Those pay dates should be set up on the payroll schedule, the same dates that you actually pay the members their pay. Now, beginning with the 25-26 fiscal year, that new school year setup dashboard is located on the employer reporting dashboard. So what this allows you to do is it'll navigate you to every single one of those pages that you need to set up. It is new. I would go out there and view that school year setup training that I have out there. And you can still continue to upload your 24-25 reports without completing this school year setup. So you still have a few weeks to work on this, to do your payroll schedule, to go through all those pages. But you will have to have the school year setup completed before you start uploading the 25-26 school year. Now, once you click on the payroll schedule, there's going to be, if you aren't familiar with it, there's going to be two different tables. You're going to see the top, which is your active tables that you have. It's going to list that fiscal year along with those pay dates and the job categories. And then it will add the 25-26 to that active. But once that school year is done, it will drop down into that payroll schedule history. Now, we did open that up on June 1st to start entering those 25-26 payroll schedules, and that new year setup is located on the front of your page now, if you notice that here this week. Now, new for 25-26, if you select that you have teachers and administrators on the general page during that dashboard, and again, you can go back and look at that training, or I can show it at the end, then you have to set up separate payroll schedules this year. So if you attended some of the trainings last year, we said make sure that you set up separate payroll schedules, but we noticed there was still a lot of districts that were including them on the same one. So if you have both teacher and administrator selected, you cannot complete the setup for the payroll schedule. You will receive a fatal error that'll be at the top that lets you know that you have to set up both. So whenever you click add a payroll, once you choose one job category, it's going to automatically disable that other. So before you could click both, and now you're only going to be able to click one of those. So once you start the process of setting up a payroll schedule, you're going to select the fiscal year and the job category that you are wanting to create the payroll schedule for. You're also going to be selecting the type of employer covered under that job category, and you have to select at least one from both. So you have to click teacher, and then you will need to select if it's just full-time and part-time contractual people that the payroll schedule is for, then you will be just selecting those employment types. So once you choose the type of job category and the type of employees, you're going to be then taken to the second step, where you are going to be then selecting the payroll frequency, payment lag, and first pay date for those job categories that you chose. Now, you should be creating separate payroll schedules if you have a job category that has a different payroll frequency and payment lag. So sometimes you will have one set up for substitutes, for your regular teachers and your administrators. Now, when choosing the payroll frequency, this is going to be based upon how you pay those individual members. So if you're paying just your substitutes monthly, then whenever you're creating that payroll schedule for them, you would be choosing monthly. The majority of time, most teachers are paid semi-monthly throughout the year, but you have these four different options. Now you will have to choose a payment lag. So the payment lag is going to refer to the number of days that are in between that pay period end date and the pay date. So you're going to have three different options whenever you are setting up payroll schedule. I feel like the most common one is that current lag, which means that when we are pre-filling the schedule for you, that end date and pay date, they're going to be the same. If you say that you have a positive lag, what it's going to do is it's going to add days to that end date to determine that pay date. Negative will be subtracting. So really look at this. It's not set in stone. I'll show you. You can reset the information if you weren't quite sure how you want it set up. But this pre-fill schedule option is supposed to help create this easily for you. And then you will be choosing that first pay date for the job category and employment type. So your administrators, typically they start receiving their first paycheck in July. So it might be anywhere from July 1st to July 15th that you are starting to pay your administrators. Your teachers, they typically receive their first paycheck in August or September. So this is why it's very important that you are separating those out. Otherwise, it was messing up SSP side because you were basically stating if you put them all on one payroll schedule, that you were saying your teachers started getting their first paycheck on July 15th. And then if you had to add a bunch of dates at the end, you were basically saying your administrators were getting paid all the way through August 15th. So you had 30 different pays on your payroll schedule. So then SSB, they were expecting payments for these administrator and teachers, even though they weren't, because your teachers started receiving their paycheck in August or September. So it's very important that now we are forcing you to set up those separate ones, because if you say they get paid semi-monthly, a teacher should not be showing on a payroll schedule having 32 pays. Now your substitutes, like I said, they might be a little bit different. Maybe you just pay them once a month. Maybe you have it set up in your payroll that their first paycheck is 9/15, but if it's for work performed 2 weeks prior from 8/15 to 8/30. So a lot of districts set up a different payroll schedule for your substitutes. And again, this is very important because whenever you are uploading reports to us, you have to make sure your payroll software has a begin, end, and pay date that matches a payroll schedule that you set up with us. Now, after you complete that initial information, now you are going to have a choice between choosing us to try to pre-fill in that information for you with that information with the payment lag and first pay date that you are giving to us, or you do have the option of manual entry, which means that you are going to have to be manually entering all those dates yourself. So if you're choosing the pre-fill schedule, what this is going to do once you continue to the next page, that schedule detail is going to display pay period dates based upon that payroll frequency that you chose. So if you chose that they get paid monthly, we're going to pre-fill that out because they just have 12 standard pays that they receive. So depending upon that payroll frequency, again, we're going to fill that in for you. It's going to create that begin, end, and pay date. That very first row that you'll see at the top, that is what bases where it starts. So in this example, it was listed that the first pay date was August 29th, and you chose that it was current. So they're getting paid semi-monthly, so that begin date is 8/15, end date is 8/29. And since again you chose current, that end date and pay date will be equal to each other. And all these fields are editable. So if you do the pre-fill schedule and you want to change something, all of these fields are editable. Now, whenever you choose the manual entry, again, based upon that payroll frequency that you selected, if you said that they were paid semi-monthly, we're automatically going to generate 24 pay lines for you. And each one of those rows, you're going to need to manually enter that begin, end, and pay date. So hopefully that pre-fill schedule, it is a lot easier to use. So, but if you just want to manually enter it, that is perfectly fine too as well. You can also add rows or delete rows. So whenever you generate your payroll schedule and maybe you pay your members only over 10 months and we created extra lines at the bottom, then you can go ahead and delete those out. And if you had pre-filled in the information and you didn't like it, you didn't realize maybe what the payment lag was, you want to change that by 1 or 2 days or 2 weeks to have that pre-filled in for you, you simply click that reset. You can play around with any of those schedule attributes or the payroll attributes. You can change all of that. Just know if you did start working on it and you made any changes, if you click reset, all your corrections are going to be lost, but feel free, you can play around with this as much as you want to. Now for 25-26, we do have a new column that was added for both the teachers and the administrator payroll schedules. So whenever you choose teacher, you'll see the teacher contract days column, and whenever you choose administrator, you're going to see the administrator contract days. So what you're going to be doing in that teacher contract day column, you are going to be providing the days a teacher could work in between that begin and end date of that pay date. And this is based upon the teacher's regular school term. So don't include any summer school or license extra duty that they are performing outside of that regular school term. You are going to be doing your regular teacher school term. So if you have social workers that might work additional 5 days before, additional 5 days after, again, that is not the regular school term. And if you click that little I, if you're still not quite sure, again, it'll pop up and just give you more information, just reminding you do not include those summer school and that you are just going to be putting that regular school term calendar. Now, based upon your school calendar, you're going to be entering those work days in between that specified date range. And the system knows if you try to put 12 days, if there is not 12 weekdays, Monday through Friday, if that is more, in between that begin and end date, you are going to get an error that lets you know what the maximum amount of Monday through Friday days are in between that begin and end date. So you're always going to be listing how many days are in between that begin and end date that you generated. Now with the first pay, again, with the teachers, this is important and why you couldn't necessarily have them on an administrator payroll schedule, because that begin date should reflect the first day of school. So if whenever you're generating and we generated 8/15, but your school year started August 10th, make sure you are correcting that to August 10th. This is going to help your payroll software bring over those correct amount of days because you normally set up calendars, and whenever that begin and end date, your payroll software is looking to that calendar and pulling in those correct amount of days for you. So if you adjust that date to August 10th, then you can enter however many teacher contract days happened up until August 29th. So you can't choose an amount higher, and so you have to change that to the correct school year start date so you can report then that correct amount of teacher contract days. And what that'll do is it'll make sure then that total teacher contract days will match your actual regular school term contract. Now for the administrator payroll schedule, you're going to see that column is going to be labeled admin contract days. So you are going to be putting however many days in between that begin and end date for the administrator with the highest number of contract days. So if you have your superintendent, they're working or they're getting paid for every day, Monday through Friday. So you have to make sure then that you are listing all those days. If it's 260, that's every day, or 261, depending upon the school year, you're going to be listing all of those contract days. Now, once you enter all of those contract days in between those begin and end dates, double check. We have a column that is automatically going to calculate that total. So if you are doing your teachers and you enter all the dates and you realize that at the bottom it lists 187 days, contract days, and that means one of those pay periods is incorrect. So really look, it says 180, then you'll know that you put all of those correct days in. You can see in this example above, there was 8 days in between May 15th and May 29th. And then on that 20th row, you can see they just worked 3 days because school got out maybe June 3rd or June 4th, and there was only 3 days. And then throughout the summer, there is no work days in between the rest of the summer pays. So you'd be listing 0. And again, in this example, all of those previous lines, all of those then added up to 180. If it's your administrator and you have administrator that is paid for every single day, which the majority of superintendents they are, then just make sure that that lists 260 days once you enter all of those dates. The next area that you have to complete is the flex pay box. So what this is it's anytime you have a TRS flexible benefit plan, which is a choice between taking insurance or taking a salary option. So a lot of districts, they do have that maybe if you don't take the health insurance, we'll give you $1,000. That is a TRS flexible benefit plan. And you will be letting us know every single one of those pays that you are paying a flex plan amount. So some districts, it's every pay period, maybe only once a month. Maybe you guys just give one lump sum to the members. You're going to be putting how you pay those cash takers. And then that is going to be reportable for every single person. So if you have a flex plan, just know, even if they take insurance, if they have that option, they have to have that reported. So work with your payroll software and make sure that it's set up to where it is bringing over that salary option for every single person, including those insurance takers. And I know that they have that ability to help you guys so you aren't having to manually enter anything. The special pay checkbox, this is where you can add rows that have a unique begin, end, and pay date that is outside your standard pay periods. So you'd have, if they were paid semi-monthly, you will have those 24 regular paychecks. And in this example, you have maybe somebody that did summer school. That's not part of their regular 24 paychecks. So you would be marking that as special pay, and you can list those at any time during the year. It's also common, maybe you forgot to pay somebody for an extra duty and you want to pay them on maybe September 7th, and that's outside of your regular 24 pays. You can add any of these special pays throughout the year. And then you also have that memo field. That is not something that we use. This is just something that can help you identify maybe what that special pay was for, or you can even make comments on your regular ones. So it's very common that we see that somebody marks a special pay and then you list that as summer school just so that you know what that extra special payment was for. But again, we don't use those comments for anything. That is just to help you see maybe what those special pays, or maybe just making a comment of something that you did on that regular pay. Now, once you click that save, if there's any errors that need to be resolved, you will see that red banner at the top. It will also try to tell you what that issue is. So in this example, it'll even show you what line that the problem is on. So the begin and end date of two separate lines, they cannot be the same. So in this situation on line 1, it was entered that the last day of that pay date was August 29th. And then it was listed on the second pay period row that the begin date was 8/29. But they cannot be on the same date. So it's letting you know that that next begin date, it's going to have to be a day after that previous end date. Now, once you have all those payroll schedules entered, all those edits resolved, that new payroll schedule is going to appear at the top. All of those old payroll schedules after the fiscal year ends, it's going to be moved down to the payroll history. But if you did not attend the new school year setup presentation, if you are not familiar, we do now have a review complete that's listed there that you have to make sure that you click on each one of these screens in order to complete your setup process to upload more, to upload your 25-26 payrolls. Now, once you have everything set up for all of these active schedules, there is an actions drop down that you can view them, you can edit them, you can delete them. That view, it's only view only access, but it does have a very important feature within it. There is a link to associated reports, which is going to be any report that you are uploaded, that you have in progress, anyone that you posted. You'll be able to see those reports and be able to be directed to those. That edit is going to allow you to change that information. So as long as you haven't used that payroll, that pay date, you can go in there and edit information. If you didn't review my summer payroll presentation, I've done 3 of those so far. You're probably going to need to be going in there and editing those summer pays if you have some different situations. You can delete the payroll schedule too. If there has been no reports that you have uploaded, if you realize whenever you go to upload your first 25-26 pay and it's all filled out incorrectly, you can go and delete that. As long as that report didn't hit on a begin, end, and pay date, you can simply delete it and then add another payroll schedule. So in that view, I just wanted to show you what that associated reports, what it does look like. Again, it's going to show you any of them that are in progress or have been posted. It's going to be shown on the line with that begin, end, and pay date if you uploaded a report. And if you hover over that area, it's going to kind of show you, it'll list the report ID. It's going to list whether or not it was defined benefit or DC, which is your SSP. It's going to list the authorization date that you chose. And then it's also going to tell you how many members had that begin and end date on that report. And so you can simply click on that report ID. It's going to take you directly to that report. And then once that has a line, again, you cannot delete that payroll schedule and you cannot delete that line. And it can list a whole bunch of different multiple IDs. You can see here they had a couple defined benefit, they had a defined contributions, and any time, even if throughout the year you realized that you had reported somebody incorrectly and you changed that begin and end date to correct something, it's going to let you know that there was another report, that there was a member that had that exact begin, end, and pay date. So that's the end of the presentation for payroll schedules. I did list contact information. So you can see here we do have specific emails and options, whether it's for employer services, our accounting department, or TRS's SSP program.